Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool. Hello, apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is Dimp Digital's flagship video game podcast where we take you through the ups and the downs of the video game world. We are here on your favourite podcast app and YouTube absolutely free. However, if you want to support the grassroots independent endeavour, head over to patreon.com/Dimp Digital and join the community. Hashtag hand in pocket. On this edition, I'm once again joined by the one-time FGL Grand Prix winner and reigning Grand Prix winner. It's the resident referee, Logan. How's it going?
Yeah, not bad. As soon as you said that, it made me want the title the two-time, which is what...
Greedy.
Yeah, well, I don't know, it's just got a ring to it, and that's what Dr. Disrespect calls himself, the two-time video gaming champion. And I don't know, I like the idea of being called a two-time.
So is Dr. Disrespect's two-time based on anything, or is it just a...
I mean, look, it's nonsense, isn't it?
He ain't won anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think it says 1993, 1994.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. There is a backstory he's created. But
there is lore. If there's any truth to it.
The Dr. Disrespect lore, yeah.
Up there, the bollocks that we spout over these many years. So I said actually that we're going to try and get a more balance, so you're not pulled in as often, and then you've had to do 2 weeks on the bounce because that pisshead's out drinking again.
Yep.
Adkins has let himself down again.
It'll happen. So I don't mind though. I like being here and talking bollocks every Friday. Cool. Don't tell them when it is.
It's usually Fridays. But exposes the business somewhat. But I think that's important sometimes because the news moves along so quickly. At least it gives you an out, doesn't it? Go, well, we recorded it Friday. And they're like, oh, they didn't know about whatever happened on Saturday and Sunday when Sony bought Microsoft.
Yeah. Why is that not on the podcast?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you'd have to just cancel. I think if something like that happened, you'd have to just can what was there and say, look, we'll just have to get back for something that big. But
or you leave what it is and then do a little add-on.
Yeah,
you do like a little supplementary podcast where you go and talk about that.
As long as it's not contradicting what's the news stories, I guess that's the way of doing it. Anyway,
that will happen.
That will happen. Trying to shorten these little bits so we can get into the game reviews.
No, won't allow it.
It's not allowed, is it? FGL update. Mm-hmm. So there's been some movement. I'm going to start with Hall first because he's got some good news and he's got some bad news, unfortunately for him. The good news is Shin Megami Tensei Persona Portable 3 has come out and scored himself an 80 in the Grand Prix. So no disgrace there. He's got to be semi-pleased of that because an 80 is no disgrace, especially for your 10th game. The bad news is he'd been a tad cheeky and he rolled the dice a little bit. He put Persona 4 Golden in his Grand Prix team, which is fine, but we had a Persona 4 Golden page already there. Granted, it was 2 and a bit years old, and it said PC in brackets, so the assumption was, and I was backing him for this, I thought he was played a blinder, that this current gen release that we're getting of Persona 4 Golden would get a new page. But what they did on when the reviews come out for Golden, they took the PC part of it and slammed all the reviews into the existing page, which already had a score. So the guarantee of an 88/90 sort of window was flush. That's invalid. Hall will have to transfer out Persona 4 Golden if he doesn't want to have a 0 there. Just quick thoughts on that, because if you're going to play silly games, sometimes you'll get burnt in this FGL. It's Open Critic don't seem to have the ultimate consistency for you to guarantee these sort of behaviours work.
Yeah, so I don't touch them. If there's a re-release or something like that or something going on, I go, nope, ain't worth the risk. I mean, Hall's obviously looked at it and on a balance of probabilities. As you say, even you were backing it.
Yeah.
So it's a fair assumption to make, but it's always a risk, isn't it? It's not hard just to delete PC out of the title, is it? And then they lump it in there. Because when you're looking at it, if I was doing that and I was doing the admin, I'd probably just do that anyway. I'd go, just chuck them in with all the others, delete PC, off you go.
Yeah, having like a real small insight into how a web page works or anything technology-wise, where you've got to upload a video or whatnot, creating something new again when it's already there is a hassle that I wouldn't want to go through, tagging it all, the metadata, is all this nonsense that you have to do. So OpenCritic took the feet up approach and it stung Hall, unfortunately. So unless there's something unprecedented that happens and they do eventually split off into a new page, he will need to get rid of Persona 4 Golden. And that was a very... it's sitting on a 90-ish at Metacritic, so that's probably what it would have got on PS5, that is. That's probably the round of what he's looking at. So that's unfortunate, because that's a very good score, as we know, for a game that was number 7.
A shame.
Poor old Hall. And then we get into a game that was going to impact you. You finally get on the board with your team. Adcock bringing home the bread this time. Fire Emblem Engage nailed itself an 83, which is Adcock's pick, and it's in his Grand Prix team as well. What are your thoughts on that? This is Adcock's second pick, so it wasn't his primary pick. He was last to be picked in the entire thing. I mean, if that's the last and the bottom of the barrel you're scraping there, I don't think there's too many complaints, is there?
No. I mean, my only preference would be, and I said to him in the group, I was like, really, at this stage, you're looking for 85s plus. So... when it comes down to it and you're looking at it and there's a few points like it was between me and Adkins or whatever it is, in that it can come down to that. But I think I'll take, based on what I've said in all the podcasts, it's like he's chucking out Alaskan truck simulators, this, that and the other. It's like, if he gives me 83s all along, then thank you very much. I think I'll take it. Yeah,
got to take what you can get off that boy. So that's that's actually a little bit lower than I thought it was going to get. Only because Three Houses, which is I don't know if it's a sequel, but it's the next Fire Emblem game. I don't know if there's any story pullover. I haven't looked it up myself. Don't think there is. That got an 89.
I'm pretty sure I picked that.
Yeah, you may well have
done. In one of my teams. Yeah.
So that's why the 85 probably minimum was expected there, and for that to come at an 83, you think, well, what are you playing at, Nintendo? But it's not a tragic score by any stretch of imagination. That gives you obviously the lead. Parky hasn't got a game out yet, so he's going to be looking to get on the board. But you've got quite a few coming up. Dead Space coming next week. You should be getting a score for that. Hogwarts Legacy in February. Star Wars Jedi Survivor in March. Resident Evil in April. I mean, you could be almost halfway there by the time we even get into the first transfer window at this rate.
I mean, that's where you want it. As long as they get good scores, I think.
Putting pressure on him.
Again, though, if you have less subs, the better. So... every sub costs you 5 points. So again, you're better off with an 82 than you are subbing something out and getting an 84. Yeah. So you just got to bear that in mind.
Absolutely. In terms of the Grand Prix, Adcock is currently top, leading Hall on paper. Paper on 74 at the moment with his One Piece Odyssey that released and was scored the other week. Hall on 80 and Adcock on 83 with Fire Emblem Engage. Now, do any of these games speak to you? No.
They ain't speaking to me.
Just fire that switch up for Fire Emblem.
No, I didn't play I haven't played any of the Fire Emblem stuff. I just know it reviews well.
Yeah.
Doesn't touch me. What about you?
Well, I've got Fire Emblem Three Houses on the Switch. Never booted it up. So that's a really good investment there. So one day I'll get to that. So Engage is behind the queue there, especially as it's scored a bit worse as well. I think, I've got the better one out of the two on this Switch at the moment. Persona 4 Golden, it is on Game Pass, as is Persona 3 Portable. So, you love your Game Pass. You could maybe give that a go. Big, sprawling Japanese RPG. But
people love it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I'm more inclined to bin Persona 3 Portable because it looks a little bit old, if you're asking me. It's a portable version of the game they've ported. And then Persona 4 Gold. I've heard Persona 4 and 5 are both really good, but again, heard Persona 5 is probably the better of the two. So I think, why don't I just take up the most recent one in that case? And they're long games as well. You're talking 80 odd hours minimum. I think Persona 5 is 100 odd, so that's where I stand with that. But for you, I didn't think it would be, but I best ask the question.
I've niggled with Persona. Like, I've sort of gone, am I missing something with it? But if you ain't done it, no, I don't think so. I don't think it would be my sort of game, an anime sort of style RPG. I just don't think
Turn-based
so.
combat, your favourite.
Yeah, I don't really like everything about it. Just screams I'm not going to enjoy that.
Yeah.
So why bother?
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, that's the FGL. We'll be updating as and when the games come out and see where things land. It's going to be an interesting year for sure. Let's get into the main meat of it. DICE Awards nominations. So this is the Game of the Year awards for DICE, which is this is the industry at large. This includes developers. It also includes executives for publishers, places like that. We've got the GDC, the Game Developers Conference, which run their own choice awards. That's for developers only. Obviously, we have the Keeleys, which ran in December, which is basically the media award, with our coveted own Dimp Digital Game of the Year, which rolls around. And then there's also lurking the BAFTAs, which I feel like as we're from these shores, we should back. Even though one year they gave it to Destiny, Game of the Year, which still, like vanilla Destiny. That's
the worst form.
That's concerning, isn't it? That got through the pack and came out on top.
The only thing that I can never think about that was that the gunplay was that good. They went, yep. But the rest of it was just, was not.
No. Anyway, we'll back them anyway, because that's the best we've got from these shores. And people in America seem to respect it, the BAFTA. Obviously, we've got the Television and Film Awards that are obviously more prestigious, I would say, than the Gaming Awards, but they've got that label, I guess, that carries a bit of weight over the Atlantic. Anyway, the DICE Awards themselves are going to be taking place Thursday, the 23rd of February. We have the nominees. We're not going to go through every category or anything like that. Just a quick look at it. God of War has 12 nominations, followed by Horizon Forbidden West of 8, and then Elden Ring with 7. I must say, I am surprised that God of War... I think Game of the Year will not go to God of War. We'll go through those sort of 5 they've given there in a moment, but I'm surprised that it seems to be in the Keeleys and now this, it's got the most nominations. It seems to be ticking more boxes. Then again, Elden Ring is a Souls game, which perhaps doesn't tick the boxes as required. Where do you stand on that? Was you expecting that? Or just because Elden Ring scored so highly that it should have more nominations than God of War?
Not necessarily. I think to what you said, I think God of War does everything, and in full transparency, I haven't as yet completed Ragnarok, but I'm working my way through it. I'd say I'm savouring the game more than anything. But, everything about it is excellent. Whereas Elden Ring, I feel, is one of those games that does that fucking impossible game... like, no help really well, and people seem to love it. I'd fucking hate it. I don't really understand it myself. It's like horror films. What are we doing? What are you getting out of it? But anyway,
you got to watch that Last of Us now. It's on telly.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I have.
Did you watch the first one?
No, not yet. No,
Ooh.
I was going to watch it today actually, to see how I get on with it. But
Turn the lights
hopefully
off.
it is. Well, I'm kind of hoping it's the sort of thing I can watch it, because I suspect it's going to be borderline for me. But I'm a bit surprised, but at the same time I'm not. I think everyone, I'll be glad to hear the back of Elden Ring a little bit, because I'm sick of everyone fawning over it so much. I don't see how it can be that good. I don't
subscribe to it either. I don't subscribe to the third coming of Christ, because that's what it was being given, basically.
Why is it better than any other Dark Souls game or Bloodborne? I don't understand why.
Open world now.
Is that the difference?
It's basically because it's open world, and it doesn't have the open world tropes that, say, for example, Horizon Forbidden West has, in that you have a bit of a checklist of items to do. Now, I have problems with that, having nothing over something, because you can't keep track of things. Like, you literally have to make your own list. So it kind of goes in my opinion, too far the other way, where it gives you nothing, it tracks nothing, and therefore you're kind of left to your own memory.
How the fuck, though?
Well, they're not. They're on the internet. They're on the internet
It's
looking
like
it
that
up.
fucking
That's the thing.
Pokemon one.
Yep.
It's like a Pokemon one. Like, just fucking show me where I've got to go. Why? I don't understand how these things in this day and age are now seen as positives. Oh, it doesn't help me. Well, all right. What are we doing? Like, it just, I find it bizarre. Like, if you like that sort of game, it's fine. But it's like banging on Football Manager on here. It's like, I like that sort of game. No one else does. You know, people don't want to sit there clicking around on shit all the time. Why is that not getting Game of the Year? I find that everyone said it's played it is that they really enjoyed it. Fine, I get it. But when you look at God of War, I don't understand. I mean, if God of War perhaps had come out a bit earlier in the year, I wonder if there'd be more fawning. I wonder if it's sort of a thing. I mean, which goes against common recency bias. People always prefer and favourite things that they've played most recently. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just getting a bit wound up of hearing about Elden Ring.
Well, I think we've got this next phase of like awards that will happen the early part of this year, and then after that, there'll be a DLC drop, maybe another one. You won't have to hear about it again. I think that'll be because Zelda will be out in May or whenever it's dropping, and then that'll be the forthcoming of Christ.
Yeah,
and you won't be able to escape that, unfortunately, running at 20 frames a second on that fucking Switch. Anyway, Game of the Year, there's actually 5 nominees. You've got Elden Ring, unsurprisingly, Horizon Forbidden West, unsurprisingly, God of War Ragnarok, unsurprisingly, and then they got 2 little ticklers on there. Stray once again appearing, which was widely criticised by the fans because people didn't feel that as worthy, but it's on the DICE Awards nominations. And then Vampire Survivors. Now, I don't know if you've played or looked at this game. I've not, but it is racking up some serious hours of people. There's a real addiction going on. And
is that the Battle Royale game?
I don't know what I think it's like a roguelike. Adcock has played it on his phone because it's free on there with ads, so
good
Lord. Might be worth jumping into if you're interested. But that is definitely getting people. They fucking love that game. I think Phil Spencer's played like 300 hours of it, something stupid. He posted his stats. Like
Stop doing that. Stop fucking about on that game and sort out me console and get me some good games. Sick of it. 300 hours in Vampire Survivors.
It might be more.
Friend of the show
putting that in. True
That's
game, they say. But there's the 5 there. I mean, I'm going to ask you to guess who might win. It's a crapshoot, but I think there's an obvious kind of
it's probably going to be fucking Elden Ring, isn't it? It's going to. I mean, I'm crapping on it, and I've never played it, and it's not my sort of game. But if you were sitting there and everyone else was going, it's unbelievable because of all this. But what you're actually saying is it's the same as pretty much. It's the same formula, except they've gone do what you want, and we're not going to tell you what's next. Well, I don't understand how that's. And it runs like TOS, apparently.
It does run like TOS, yeah. I don't know.
Unbelievable. Gets a free pass.
Well, Zelda will get one. They'll say those Sony games get free passes.
Mind you, Pokemon does as well, because they go, yeah, well, I just like Pokemon. You go, well, why are you excusing the fucking utter diabolical performance of it then?
Not allowed. Xbox head Phil Spencer spent 233 hours playing Vampire Survivors.
Well, I mean, I won't crap on it because I don't know what it is, but he should be doing something else with his time. Because he's obviously playing other stuff as well. And 233 hours into that.
Well, he loves it.
By the way, I know you may come on to this, but Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is up for Outstanding Achievement in Art Direction.
Yeah.
Hello?
There's a... I don't know about that one personally. I think if there's a best graphics category, you could argue maybe the campaign has that. But art direction to me suggests some level of flair and a little bit of uniqueness, not just a photorealistic model of people shooting each other. Do you know what I mean? Like art direction suggests something unique. Outstanding
Achievement in Character. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Alejandro Vargas.
I mean, I can only assume they didn't want to put all of God of War's characters in there.
Well, they put them in there, but it's just like, what? It's not even that sort of game. Anyway, I haven't played that either, so I should stop crapping on stuff I haven't played. But it just seems odd to see it in there, I think, more than anything. Anyway, I'll stop derailing it with...
They've struggled. Well, also, I saw they delayed their Season 2.
They have?
Warfare 2. What's that all about?
Oh, I don't know.
Are you busting for new content, or are you like, all right, don't matter?
Well,
it's coming
I mean,
2 weeks later, and that's
this is a rabbit hole. I mean, it is what it is. It's been like that since November, so I'm sure I can last it out another couple of weeks. But it's more the changes that they're making are just a bit bizarre. They're basically stripping it back. Before long, what we'll have is basically Warzone 1.0 back again. They'll go, Verdansk is back. Have that. Will you love it? And that's what it'll be. Everything will be back to the same. It's bizarre. The problem is and I was chatting to someone the other day about that. They pretty much, when they released Warzone 1.0, they hit gold. Like with the balancing, the map, all of the gulag stuff, everything was like the best it was going to be. Yeah. But obviously they didn't know that, so they just tinkered relentlessly to a point where they then took Verdansk away and Caldera come back, and everyone fucking hated it. All the change, basically every change they've made, most people have gone, this is worse. Like they've continually made it worse. And they went, here's Warzone 2.0, and they went, what's all this shit? And they made a load of changes, and now they're slowly backing that out again to how it was in 1.0. Bizarre. Oh, there you go.
You'll have fun with that then when that drops. I think it's February 15th or something it's been moved to. So.
I'm waiting to see what else pisses me off. Yeah. I mean, it ain't that hard in my view, but that's another rabbit hole we could go down another time.
Google Stadia has officially shut down.
Yeah.
Google's streaming service Stadia has officially been shut down just over 3 years after its launch. The cloud gaming service launched on November 19th, 2019, but failed to gather any real momentum, leading to Google's announcement in September 2022 that the service would be ending. The time has now come, and the Stadia servers were shut down on Wednesday night. So, that's it. Google, with an asinine amount of money, think, well, we'll have a go at this streaming malarkey, and then 3 years later, like, can't be supporting that anymore. Let's chuck it in the bin and get rid of it. I still don't have my refund, actually. I need to ask them. I think because I paid for it on an old card. Now, this sort of nonsense annoys me because it seems like it's down to me to fucking ask the bank and say, where's that money? They go, we've sent it. You can't fucking pay anything on it anymore, so why are you being able to send money back to it anyway? I have to get up them about that. You didn't dabble into Stadia, or was you even tempted at any point with what Stadia were offering? Because I bought the Founders Kit, got the controller, which is actually really nice. I honestly played it for 2 hours and then never went back. And I'm fortunate they claim they're going to refund me because then I've not been out of pocket. But for you, was it ever even like, just maybe I'll have a little dabble with that?
Not really. I've always had doubts about this game streaming stuff. Maybe I'm just a bit old school in that I prefer to have something downloaded and just play it. I don't know if I ever. I think there's potential for game streaming, but I don't know when or how. And I think Google going at it kind of on their own is probably what was the nail in the coffin almost. It's kind of like, if they want to do that, well, why don't you try and partner with Sony or someone? I don't know. Sometimes I think it's good to see companies that kind of diversify, but sometimes as well you think, just stay in your swim lane. Just you do what you do well. Stop spending money on stop messing about. So I always thought it was a bit of a weird one for Google to get into, sort of game streaming, sort of out of nowhere, really. But it would be, using it for something like on their Play Store, on Androids or something like that. Like, there must be a better use than just getting people on their TVs to do it. It's kind of like, surely they realise that Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, PC, people have got their things already and they're set up with it. Like, what are you disrupting? What are you?
Yeah. And in hindsight, it released only a year before the new consoles. We kind of already expected them then. And I don't know, when something new and shiny like that's coming along with good hardware that you assume is going to be more reliable, you just think, well, I'll just wait till that. I don't need to dive in on this streaming.
Well, it's a tried and trusted, isn't it? Yeah. Everyone's locked into this kind of, have your console, buy your console, buy discs and things, and people are wedded to that way of doing it. I think, I think we've talked about this multiple times. I think there is a potential in the future to do it this way, like plug in the wall sort of thing and off you go, but just feels like we're a bit away from it. I think it might be one of those things where it was right thing, wrong time.
Yeah, potentially. Do you think their approach was wrong? Like you sort of alluded to it earlier, where they just come out and said, look, we're going on this on our own for starters, and we are asking you to pay the same equivalent for access to a server, basically, to play the games. You own access to that server, but it's even an extra degree removed from digital, isn't it? If you go back, if you go back to having a physical disc, that's the ultimate. You've got something in your hand. Then you go digital, you go a bit ropey, and then that's like, that's a server access.
Digital, but you don't even have it in your house. It's just through the airwaves or through a cable or whatever. Yeah, I mean, how are you convincing people why is that a more attractive option for people? Like, that's the thing. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you select that over anything else? Like, what, when Android come along, they were like, our phones are cheaper, and you're not wedded to that Apple, ecosystem. Prison, yeah. So you got more customers. Like, they're offering you a tangible something in return, if that makes sense. Whereas, with something like this, they're going, well, yeah, same price, same, except one step removed, and you're then out of the ecosystem, being able to play with your friends, and you're pulling it so far away. Like, there's no tangible benefit to people, really.
No.
So it's like the same with all these things. Like, what problem are you solving for people? Like, what?
I can't afford a console. Well, you can go on Xbox's All Access and get one of them. Pay it off over 2 years.
People just do things anyway. They get credit cards, they get loans.
It's true.
Everything's accessible to people nowadays if they want it. Like, really, when you think about it, and you don't have to have a huge amount of income to be able to do it. So, I think if people want a PS5, they want a PS5, and they'll make it happen one way or another. So you've got to give people, if you're saying, we'll let you stream it, and it's going to come in at half the cost of a console. Or do you know what I mean? Or your games are going to cost you £25 a pop. You can stream them anytime from our server. And you start, all of a sudden, people start thinking, oh, for what I want to do, is this an option?
Yeah.
Whereas, I don't think they ever had something like a USP that was going to break into that market. I don't think. Maybe I'm talking bollocks. It's always possible.
Well, I always just think that this streaming in itself, particularly now, and maybe maybe forever, but never would say that and bet my house on it, that it's always just going to be part of, and it's going to be optional. It can't just be the only solution that you're offering as a business to someone, because as we've seen here, people just don't want to do it. Like, I think what Phil and Xbox have with Game Pass and xCloud, that's the way you are at that point. You're not saying this is the only way to play it on your phone. You're actually saying, if you have a problem and you're away and you want to play it, we actually have streaming there as an option for you. But also, you can whack down the £450 or do an all access deal, and we'll take it out of your account, for over 2 years or whatever the term is, and you can play at that. Or it's just a little Brucey bonus there, rather than it being the actual product that you're streaming the game. It's like, no, we offer streaming as a service in addition to what you're currently doing now, which we know that you enjoy, because we can see you're fucking booting that hardware up.
Yeah, and I just got to add, it's like, even when I stream stuff now, if I can download it, I will.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
If I can download it and watch it on the go or do something, I'm not going to be reliant on something being streamed and buffering and doing all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't want to be playing God of War as an example. Then all of a sudden there's a problem with my bandwidth, or someone in my house starts watching Netflix, and I just don't really see it as the ideal way to play games. And the majority of this country as well doesn't have an amazing internet connection. I think in a lot of ways we're spoiled by being, in a well-connected area that's got city fibre and whatnot.
Well, I fucking haven't.
I know. But if you go out to some more rural,
Openreach apparently doing that. They've fucking got feet up round here.
it'll find its way through.
Will
But
it?
the majority of... Well, you're just in the,
Means a fucking wonder. Ain't though, is it? Ain't that far away. Ain't Foulness. Good lord.
Yeah, but you're right.
They'll get it before me, and I'll be fuming.
Because I keep getting letters through my door
Fucking
every
sign
week
in if
now
you want to go
going,
and visit there.
City Fibre. I go, I've already got Virgin. Leave me alone. I
Yeah.
don't need it.
Openreach blowing.
But yeah, it's a concern. It might come through when Starlink or whatever is widely available and internet connections you can have anywhere and with ridiculous speeds and stuff. It might become more viable. But again, why are people going to move to it over the existing setup? There has to be an economic advantage, I think, to be able to do it.
Yeah. And also, we forget the PC crowd, Master Race.
We don't
deal with them. 10 million concurrent users they had about 10 days ago, which is their highest peak. Or it was over 10 million. It obviously didn't get to 10 million, then exactly that, and then go back down. It'd be ridiculous. But over 10 million people they had concurrently playing video games. And we know, if you go down that road, you're paying in excess of what you get for a console, probably double-ish in the region for a modest PC. So there's 10 million people playing games at any one time that are happy to pay out for it. Like this whole, we're going to take away the cost of the hardware. So people are like, well, I don't mind paying for the hardware, to be quite frank.
People actively like having hardware.
Yes.
I wouldn't even say it's a don't mind. It's like people like tech.
Yeah.
Like, I like technology. I like, better tech. I like better screens. I like, things are interesting, aren't they? Technology and devices and things are interesting to interface with.
Yeah.
And I think and that's what I mean. You take that away, and the whole thing, in a weird kind of way, becomes a bit less interesting when you haven't got the control over the hardware.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good point.
Well, yeah, that's what. Stadia's gone. Luna's still knocking about with Amazon, who are actually making games and publishing games. So they feel like they're doing a little bit more in the gaming space rather than just offering a service. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I still think it's just not ready yet, and it's always going to be. I'm in the camp of where I just can't foresee where I'd want to choose that over. Even if the outcome is I've got to pay £500 every few years to have some hardware, I'll go. Well, I'll pay it. I'll save up for it. I'll do what I can to do it. I don't want the option to ever disappear, and I don't think it necessarily will. I'm just wondering if there will ever be a crossover like we've seen with digital sales, where it was like, I reckon there were 10, 15 years ago, probably 10. 50 might be going a bit too far back for it to even be an idea. The thought of a digital like buying 70 quid or 60 quid's worth of a game on digital and not having the disc would have been like, Now we've seen with the European sales data, it's the majority that are doing that. So we always have to be cognizant that things can change among the mass markets. Here's one for you. Leaked. This is rumour and innuendo, so we're not going to talk too much about the specifics. We don't know if this is true. This is sourced from VGC. Leaked Suicide Squid images. Suicide Squid? The Squid Games. Leaked Suicide Squad images appear to confirm Battle Pass and more, but source tells VGC it's dedicated to cosmetics. So we're not talking about that. We're going to do what we did similar to the Naughty Dog thing. We don't talk about their dilemma. But seeing the response, the outpouring of, oh God, it's a game as a service, it's live service. I just had to have the thought, like, why does everyone hate games as a service or live service, however you want to put them? Now, I must plant my flag in the ground. I don't really play many of these games at all. I don't. The Destiny and Destiny 2 were probably the last ones I played, and since then I don't.
Division.
Division. You're right. It kind of is, but it has.
It teeters on the edge of being one.
You're correct. Division 2, and in fact, that's a good link because that's what's coming at the end of the episode. Is the Division 2? No, it's not. That's a lie. I fibbed. It's Assassin's Creed. It's Ubisoft, though. I mean, that's almost a games as a service. We've spoken about that. We talk about that later on, actually, about how that's almost single player game as a service. But no, you're right. Division 2 probably is on that edge there. But if you look through what I play, what I come back with, it's very rarely. There's probably one of these a year tops.
Yeah.
But there's obviously lots of people out there that do enjoy them. You could argue that World of Warcraft and the MMOs were the first games as a service with the subscription model. Like, it's an ongoing world with ongoing, content that's being added. But anyway, the question is, and this is more aimed at you because people don't care about someone who likes their single player games talking like this, but you actively partake in things like Warzone. You played Apex over the years. Rocket League's always on the go. These live services, Fortnite, it's all there. All the big ones you'll tick off and play in any given month. Why does everyone else hate games as a service? And why don't you? What do you find appealing towards them?
I wouldn't say I hate or like. I mean, I think it depends on execution and what you're giving me in return for my money. And, using Rocket League as an example, I'll look that they give you a Rocket Pass every 3 or 4 months or whatever it is and go, you can see what's in it. And they go, take it or leave it. Now, there'll be times when I go, oh, yeah, there's some good like cosmetic bits and rocket boosts and cars and stuff. I'll have it. And there are times when there isn't, but they still give you some free stuff throughout the season and whatnot. So I think the way that they do it is better. It has no impact on the game. So I don't mind it. Warzone, they'll usually put a fucking gun behind it. So, which becomes the meta gun, and then you need that gun. So they're a little bit more controversial, but
cheeky.
I think basically it depends what the model is. I don't mind a subscription style thing or a battle pass, rocket pass, whatever you want to call it. I'm fine with it. Broadly, as long as it sticks to cosmetics, I'm fine with it. Now, content is a different discussion because if they're adding things in and taking stuff out, I mean, using Fortnite and stuff, they use the updates to balance things and chuck stuff out, add new stuff in. It can go one or two ways. It can go good or bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily supporting a game through a life cycle. I'm fine with it as long as it all knits together. I mean, using our experience with Division as an example, they chuck so much shit on top of it that when we come towards it, without giving any spoilers away, I think it was a little bit difficult to knit it all together.
Yeah.
So again, it comes back to the execution of it. But, I think especially for a game that you like and you enjoy playing, I think it's a really good way of keeping things fresh and, keeping and piquing your interest in it. So I wouldn't say it's always got to be seen as a negative, but then a lot of people just want to get the content, smash through it, do it, tick it off and trade it in or whatever. It doesn't work for those sort of people. There's no, you can't pay your money and get some back at the end of it. You sort of have to stick it out for a longer period of time. So yeah, overall, to sum up that waffle, I think it's a good thing for games that you enjoy. I think clearly you pay some
All right,
money
we'll
out.
get God of War and put that on the live service model, shall we?
Well...
Don't even ponder that. That's
now you've chucked it out into the ether. So what are we doing?
Gaming gods will pick that up, and that's what we'll get out of them now.
I think for the right games, I mean, I think I've been pretty vocal in that. I don't think certain single player. I don't think it works very well with single player or predominantly single player experiences. I think with multiplayer games, it can work. I don't think in the Assassin's Creed world or the Division world, it's executed as well and fits in as well. I think they're better kept as, if you want to release DLC, great, then release DLC and then that becomes a separate part of the game. But don't make me be jumping on for these sort of 2-week special events and stuff because what we're doing.
There's a festival going on.
Yeah, it's that sort of stuff where I'm like, I don't care. Like, why are you bringing me back to this?
Tell you what annoyed me about that is they've done the same festival 2 years in a row. Which makes sense, but I thought there was going to be new stuff to get. There wasn't. I was
no. Just an annual festival at Christmas for you.
It's not a living world. I haven't switched it on in 6 months. These people have just been stood here, as far as I know. They have, because that bloody Xbox don't let you close a game down. It's always quick resuming every time. I don't even have to turn it off now. I know.
Every time I boot my console up now, or like turn it back on, I have to go through into my games and close the games that are open. Because half the time it don't work anyway. It just fucking ballses them up.
Yeah.
So it's a completely pointless feature.
It's one of his big USPs. Poor old Phil, crapped on again.
Doesn't work for the majority of games. It just upsets them.
No. I'm not completely anti games as a service, but they are down the rung of priorities, and that's where they always come to. What I find distressing about a games as a service is keeping up. You can use Destiny as the example. There was a time when I was pretty much up to date with that. That was before they started doing seasons. Then I pop on and they're doing seasons every 3 months or whatever the timescale is, as well as one big expansion every year, maybe 2, or maybe even a smaller one. And I was like, I can't keep up with this. And then once I miss the cycle, you miss one cycle, one season, you're then behind the curve, and then you're like, well, how do I catch up? They go, well, you can't because we vaulted that. And you're like, well, what are we doing here? And even if I wanted to, I've then got a 30-hour grind ahead of me just to get up to date for the next piece, and then that's not going to end until... Well, I just don't play games in that way. Very rarely do I play ongoing games. The longest games you'll catch me playing are management games or sim games, which aren't service games at all. They're almost infinite in the fact that you sort of... I use F1 Manager. I could just play as many seasons as I wanted. Just keep going and keep going. But the idea of playing Destiny 2 indefinitely, which I feel like I want to do because I want to soak up all the lore and whatnot, just doesn't appeal to me. And I think, well, part of that's my personality. It doesn't allow for that, does it? Ronnie don't accept half-baked measures. It's either all or nothing. So there's always going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
But on the other side of things, it's also time. There's a million games out there. I like to get one, get it done, tick it off, and then let's pick this up. What's this? Oh, Pentiment. Oh, what's this? Norco, whatever it might be. Have a go at that. Oh, Dead Space is coming out. Let's play that now for a week or two. And I don't feel like the games of services let you breathe. They want you there. They want you there all the time. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm in the minority as well. I must state that. Yeah.
I don't know if you're in the minority. I sort of sit halfway in between, I think, in that I enjoy playing them, but I like doing things when I want to do them. Yeah. I don't like the feeling that the game is
dictating
I don't
terms.
like that. I'm just sort of like an NPC in life, and I just have to just play this game on autopilot just to get... Do you know what I mean, though? You're sort of not... The game then dictates your attention rather than you dictating your attention to the game.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't like about them, is that, you know, using Destiny as example, you're in there doing those weekly like raids and weekly tasks and nightfalls and this, that, and the other to get the rewards, to not get left behind. And then you're in this... As soon as it's hooked you into that grind... You're not doing it most of the time. You're sitting there grinding something away, fucking hating your life, like going, "This, I just want this over," and you're forcing yourself into it. And that's what I don't like about live service. Sometimes when it's executed that way, is that it, you know, rather than it just you progressing naturally with your play in the game, you artificially are just there, you know, spending time putting hours into it, grinding away. So it's a tricky balance with them.
That's the advantage with things like Call of Duty, Warzone, and Rocket League, is there's no real narrative that you need to keep up with. It's just play the game. Whereas Destiny, there is narrative threads and spider webs that go out. And it's that's where I get distressed. And that's why
it's been super successful, though.
Oh, of course.
You know, it's not us saying it shouldn't be there. A lot of people really enjoy that, and all the Destiny Dave will be sitting there going, well, I wanted more content. This is exactly the sort of stuff I wanted, because that's that for a period of time. I don't know if it's now, but, you know, he was mainlining that game. That's what he did, and that's what he wanted content on.
He's back on WoW now.
Good Lord.
The original
back in on that.
Exactly. That's what happens. Anyway, well said. People do seem to despise games as a service. I'm willing to give this particular one a benefit of the doubt and just see what it's all about, because I think how it's structured and how it's executed, as you mentioned earlier, is key. It doesn't mean you have to hate the game. Well, from my perspective, I don't have to hate the game if it ends up having live service elements. If I can jump in, and even if it's predominantly multiplayer, which this game does offer multiplayer, if that's the way to play it, like The Division, I can work my way around that. It just means that, you know, we're not going to necessarily be scrapping to get battle passes for it. But That's how the cookie crumbles. Anyway, the main event for this edition, as we mentioned earlier, is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Not the Division 2. That is ready to go, though, so I'll probably have to put that next week now. I've revealed and exposed the business. But yeah, we wrapped up Assassin's Creed Valhalla after the final chapter was released late in December, or in December 2020. I don't think it's late December, but it was there in 2022, which basically was the signal that that's it, the last main update of the game. Logan and I have played all the expansions that are paid. I had dabbled in all the different content, not necessarily finished it all. And then we finished off this sort of final chapter to wrap a bow on it and reflect on what I see as a bit of an experimental game for Ubisoft. Hugely successful in many aspects, but to support the game for 2 years consistently every few weeks with content and updates and whatnot is something they've not done before for a single player only game. There is no multiplayer option for that. So we discuss all that and the game itself and whether ultimately we feel like it was a positive or a negative for Assassin's Creed. So look forward to Assassin's Creed Valhalla coming your way, and we'll see you on the other side. Here we are then, back with some game impressions to close out this edition of Idle Game Chat, joined by the 2022 Grand Prix winner, Resident Ref Logan. You won't lose the Resident Ref title, let's confirm.
No, I'm fine with that. I'm okay having 2.
Yeah.
Still weird not to be the nearly man, but who knows? By the time this goes out, it could have been 6 months worth of...
It might, yeah, I mean, the weather out there is diabolically cold and pissing it down. It may well be the height of summer.
Yeah.
By the time this gets out, because we backlog our items as best we can to put feet up as much as we can, sort of min-maxing in the podcasting space. As people would have seen on the show notes, this says Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is a strange thing to be doing over 2 years after its initial release. But we have finally completed what we believe was the final kind of content drop. We've had all the paid expansions out. Ubisoft have been supporting it for 2 years consistently. And then they released late last year the last chapter DLC, which was supposed to sort of close out Ivor's story. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of revisit a game that has been used as almost like a game as a service in many ways. You know, constant drops of content, roadmaps out your arse, and has finally come to an end. But the kicker is this is a single-player game. We don't often see this in this space for these types of games. So if nothing else, it's an interesting experiment, you know, for people to do. And also perhaps those of you that haven't picked it up, you might understand what you're in for, because I think my time clocked in at 167 hours on my game save. Yours was what, 140 was it? I can't remember what we had.
Yeah, just nearly 146.
Yeah. And that's not everything either. I've not completed every single item in this game. There's still 2 sort of added quests, which are like mastery challenge modes and a roguelite mode, which I just like, I don't care enough to be doing this. Like, this is not what I'm in this Creed for. This is not what I kind of signed up for 2 years ago either. It's absolutely morphed into something completely different in many ways, which we'll get into. Let's start with the game page. So I've gone on Ubisoft's site to try and figure out what they're selling.
Yeah.
So what we've got here, build your own Viking legend. I was like, okay, fine. Become Ivor, a Viking raider raised to be a fearless warrior and lead your clan from icy desolation in Norway to a new home amid the lush farmlands of 9th century England. Find your settlement and conquer this hostile land by any means to earn a place in Valhalla. England in the age of the Vikings is a fractured nation of petty lords and warring kingdoms. Beneath the chaos lies a rich and untamed land waiting for a new conqueror. Will it be you? Write your Viking saga, lead epic raids, engage in visceral combat, grow your settlement, share your custom raider. That's making the main event there. Now, I can only assume that's been left for 2 years, because that's almost certainly not what a lot of the game post-release has been about. You know, they haven't updated that to reflect what's actually available there, but that feels in line with what I played vanilla, back in 2020, finishing that up. Does that ring true to you, or do you disagree?
Yeah, so as you were reading that, I was thinking exactly the same thing. I was thinking that's got base game written all over it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really reflect much of what I've played over the past 2 years, to be honest.
No, they've certainly crept away from that particular narrative focus and structure, absolutely. And just for reference, we did do some gradings for the game and the DLCs, the paid DLCs that have come previously. So the base game, or vanilla game, I should say, I gave it a silver. Adkins also gave it a silver. You crapped on it and gave it a bronze. Dumping ground, some say. Paid DLC, we've had Siege of Paris. We both gave it a bronze. Wrath of the Druids, both wouldn't put it in the gallery. Didn't make it. And then Dawn of Ragnarok, you did a solo kind of review with me asking the questions because you got in there early. And it got a bronze. I've since played it and would probably give it... I won't even let it in the gallery, I don't think. I'm so fed up with fucking Odin in this game that just was the complete wrong focus for me. I really did not get on with that at all. It was just get through this because I've paid for it now.
Yeah.
And see what happens. Let's see what happens. Now, we have to also address the other elephant in the room. This is a post-God of War and God of War Ragnarok game where they're using the same Norse mythology with different characters, and obviously it's a completely different spin on it. But in my view, and people say and claim bias, but I'm not sure whether there's no objectivity in this. This feels, compared to God of War, rightly or wrongly to compare it, like a sea-level version of those events. So not only are you taking me out of England and taking me away from conquering France or Ireland or doing whatever, you're chucking me in this Norse world that I didn't care about to start with, and it's coming off the back of a conclusion of Ragnarok, which I enjoyed thoroughly and thought was a fantastic view at that mythology. Are you in a similar boat from that perspective? So I know at least it felt like to me, you were more into the Norse stuff before all this stuff started, like just generally with the Vikings TV show and all that stuff. Like, does this feel like a budget version of God of War almost, in that the story they've concocted, also leading into the events of Ragnarok? You're like, oh my God. I mean, obviously they couldn't predict this when they probably started this development years ago, but it's really, timing-wise, I don't think panned out very well for them.
Yeah, so it's slightly different for me, isn't it? Because I actually played the Creed one before I'd even played God of War. So,
oh yes, of course. So you'd sort of wrapped up that arc with Dawn of Ragnarok before original God of War.
Correct. Yeah. So on my flavour of it, so I can completely understand, when we're going through things, why we've got a slightly different perception of the story. Like I'm sure that if I'd have played God of War and God of War Ragnarok before I had done the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC for Assassin's Creed, I might have had a slightly different perspective, right?
Yeah.
But I completed Assassin's Creed, basically, all the DLC, and then played God of War base game on my PS5, and obviously now subsequently started Ragnarok. So I've come at it from a slightly different angle, where if you've literally just come off the high, really, of God of War Ragnarok, and then to play the Dawn of Ragnarok is going to be, a massive come down. So it's a slightly skewed, I would say, perception, but there's no two ways about it. Like the God of War story and use of the mythology and the narrative that they weave is much, much better than the narrative that Assassin's Creed, go and weave. And that, I don't think I think it would be unfair to expect Assassin's Creed to do the same thing with an open world game. There's slightly different to God of War, but that being said, it is difficult to then enjoy Assassin's Creed after the highs of the God of War interpretation, because they build out the character. The one thing that's always frustrated me about Assassin's Creed is that you never really, beyond Eivor and a few other characters, you don't ever really get You only scratch the surface. Like there's so many characters that you scratch the surface of, and that's part of the problem. I think is that they don't really build that out enough.
No, it's definitely not as rich or as dense, is it? The character work alone, and even on the locations and whatnot. I think we're treated to Asgard and what's it, Svartalfheim, or how you're supposed to say it, all the F's roaring around. I want to ask this. So there are obviously overlapping characters in this.
Yeah.
Sindri, Brock. But they're called Brocker, for example.
Yeah.
Is called Brocker in Assassin's Creed, but he's just called Brock in God of War. Who's got that right? Who's got it wrong? Who's made the right decision? Because I knew who they were, because it's obvious that there's a transition there. But what do you know what they're playing at there? Is there like a sort of, one of them's trying to do it natively and one's just sort of westernized it for English speaking languages?
I don't know for certain, but I think that ironically Assassin's Creed have tried to use the more original. Yeah, and that's why you've got like Harvey instead of Odin and stuff.
Yeah.
And because I think it took me ages to figure out that I was actually playing as Odin. I was like, he looks like Odin.
He's got one eye.
Odin. He's got one eye, but he's called Harvey. And I was like, I've never heard this
No, I haven't.
kind of interpretations. They've kind of gone down the lore route, I think. But broadly speaking, almost for every character, I prefer the God of War interpretation, which is actually not really in line with the portrayal that you'd usually have in a Norse way. I mean, without having spoilers, God of War, like Thor in God of War, is this sort of fat slopper that's kind of, do you know what I mean though? And you don't associate, I mean, especially like in modern like taken to him, you take the Thor films, he's kind of like, it's like attractive, like hero, like Superman style Thor, really. And it's kind of like they do take this interesting way of having their own interpretation, but I feel like Assassin's Creed very much tries to keep it to the kind of accepted stereotypes, if you like, of those characters.
Yeah, I just in general didn't enjoy much of the Norse stuff they put into this game. Like, for me, the game was at its best when you're Ivor in England, roaring round, conquering, doing quests, raiding. When it was the Viking game. Yeah. And unfortunately, and this, I know Assassin's Creed diehard fans love all this stuff, but whatever they seem to want to do with this goddamn overarching ISU storyline that's connected into the Norse stuff, I just never, I don't understand what's going on. I've played every single one of these video games other than Assassin's Creed Rogue, and I have no idea what they're doing with this stuff. So as soon as it departs from Ivor just conquering and being a Viking, and then sometimes they go after artifacts, and they're like, oh, the Apple of Eden. I kind of understand that stuff in that context, but then they take it a step too far and then incorporate it into this Ragnarok type fucking Norse godlike, and I just think I've completely lost track of what's even happening here. There's all sorts happening in this video game, and I think it muddies what could have been just a good Viking game, on the understanding that Assassin's Creed, they're always going to try and weave in this stuff, but it's normally not as potent. And focusing a whole paid expansion onto the Norse stuff was a mistake in my view completely, because like I said, I never enjoyed that stuff in the main game. It's always like, right, I just need to get through this cack so I can get back to in England. Did you share the same frustrations and the split between Ivor and Harvey stuff, and then also this overarching layer of whatever is going on about solar flares and whatnot, which I still don't understand what's occurring?
Yeah, it's always pissed me off in the Assassin's Creed stuff where they're trying to get too clever with it.
Elden Ring made more sense than this.
But I don't know why they didn't just go at some point and they go, right, we're going to make Assassin's Creed games. They're just going to be in different eras, like done. And I was completely with you. I thought it was at its best when you were Eivor, you were meeting the other Viking clans, and you're trying to deal with the politics of England and all that kind of stuff. I was like, that's where 2/3 of my playthrough time come from was doing that, and it gets a little bit exhausting. Don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna say it was all great, but that's when the game was at its best. And the thing that the Norse stuff does do is give you a real license to do whatever you kind of want with that world. And they've obviously gone, well, look, we can do this whole other thing, which arguably you could do a game on, like as Odin, if you wanted to do that. I don't know why they wove it in. And Eivor's almost like this reincarnated Odin and stuff, and they're kind of like trying to weave all that. And I'm just sort of like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, and I said to you before, you kind of get invested, or at least I did. I got invested in Eivor as a character, and then all of a sudden you find yourself as another character that has already got a predefined story that's been created and is of legend.
Yeah.
And is also a memory. So you don't feel like you're affecting that. You feel like you're playing through a memory. So it's like, well, this is inconsequential anyway.
And also, just to add to that, don't forget, you're playing through Eivor for a simulation. Yeah. So you're going, it's like fucking Inception. You're going like another layer deeper into it, and you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that. Yeah, you're kind of in a dream. It's just a bit. Yeah, and it's just not as engaging, I think. And to your point, it's kind of like, get through this to get back to Eivor, so I can go and slay some Saxons or whatever. It is. Yeah, I did struggle with that, and it felt like with each expansion, you got further away from that base game, which is, I'd have loved to done things like gone off to Iceland. I mean, I preferred France for a start because you're doing that. You're kind of off raiding in a different country, and Ireland was pap. We know that. France was a little bit better. The rats were not great. But yeah, I'd have loved to have done something, and there'd been this kind of sub-story in Iceland, because Iceland's one of those famous Viking places. They kind of saw it as the place to go for some reason. I don't know why.
It's that weather, isn't it?
And it could have just been a good kind of sub-story for Eivor, but for whatever reason they touched on it right at the end.
Yeah, there's a reference to Iceland being like you mentioned, actually. There's like a reference that there's allies that are out there sort of struggling with the winters and whatnot, and you think, that would have been an interesting place to go for an expansion. Keeping in mind, we just had Ireland, we just had France and England, which are all green rolling hills. Guess what Iceland is? Fucking snow. It would have been at least a change of location and environment to deal with, but alas, I know we had Norway actually, which would have just been a cut and paste to that, to be fair. Let's not give them too much credit that they would have pulled something unique out the bag, because they wouldn't have done. But over time it just became less and less engaging. And look, I don't know whether this is the right approach for a single player game. Maybe we'll touch on that right at the end. But here's just a high level view of what we were treated to. So we had 3 paid expansions, which we've spoken about ad nauseum, sort of ranging from average to good to okay to not very good. Mm-hmm. They then treated everyone to 13 roadmaps throughout 2 and a bit years, ranging from all sorts of content, festivals, and added like 3 quest lines, which were always not very engaged. They were literally 1 quest and done. I was like, why are you even, what's the point in this? We got a roguelite mode that was, again, focused in fucking Odin's world, which I was like, well, we're not going to be doing this then. There's challenges, there's mastery challenges, there's all manner of has been added on to this game in 2 years. And I'm glad I got through it at this stage and did it piecemeal, because I think if you pick this game up in 2023, say you buy the Ultimate Edition and you buy the Dawn of Ragnarok, maybe they will just release a big package of all this stuff and it'll be like one retail SKU. But in the absence of that, if you pick the main game up along with the expansions and the paid stuff, with all the free stuff that's now just chucked in there, I just can't understand. At some point in the game, like when you get to Ravensthorpe and it sort of breaks open, it will just go blah, and there'll be just this dozens of crap that's in your way. But how can anyone pick this up in 2023 and not just be completely overwhelmed with what's there?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I don't know how they're going to structure it in a way that, I mean, even if you got to the end of the vanilla game and then all of a sudden
that's 100 hours.
Yeah, but you get to that, then all of a sudden there's all this free took that pops up, and I honestly don't know. It's a tricky one, whether it's kind of like, unless your save game was before X date, you miss out on some bits or whatever. I don't really know.
Yeah, I think the timed festival stuff is only at certain times, so you can. They bring that back every year, it seems. So that stuff will be gone, but there's still going to be, another half dozen, I reckon, of just extra quests that just suddenly pop out of nowhere. And again, is it gated behind the player completing the vanilla game? I mean, that seems like a logical way to do it, but then how many people are going to get that far? Same with the paid DLCs. I'm assuming they are open as soon as you get to a certain stage in the game early, so people that have paid for them can play them out of order even. They can just go off and do them. But 13 roadmap items over 3 years of just constantly adding cosmetics, items, and smaller quests. And like we mentioned earlier, it's kind of like a live service approach to a single-player game.
Yeah.
Is this a failed experiment, I guess, is what I'm asking. I mean, financially, we've spoken about it before. It's made bank. So they've done well with this one. So let's not forget that. But from a player perspective, where I think I'm generally motivated to play everything, not everything, most things in a game and experience it and get to a conclusion where I feel like I've experienced a narrative or, a start to a finish kind of thing. So when this was rolled out over 2 years, it was a challenge to keep up with it all. And I'm not sure whether I'm not sure. I didn't enjoy that process really since the base game finished. But I'm wondering, as someone like you who's kind of more used to playing multiplayer games, at least for seasons at a time, and then perhaps dropping it and picking something else up and going for another season or a battle pass, whether this spoke to you at all, this sort of format for a single player game. Perhaps a little bit more MMO-like as well, people might suggest, with constant updates. But you're more into that area than I am anyway, so I'm wondering whether you had a different perspective.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't like the fact that I don't think it works, because you're there to complete an experience and then put it down. So what is the incentive for me to pick these things up? And most things like cosmetics and all this extra stuff, sort of some of it feels like it'd be better. Imagine if me and you could party up and go and do joint raids and things things like that would make it more appealing. If it was a bit more like a Division 2 style, I mean, that's not perfect by any means, but that, at least if you're there doing things together, you can kind of work through it, and there's an incentive to get certain things. But it's kind of like, I mean, I left a number of the quests outstanding, as you say, because it's kind of like I just don't care enough to do it all. But I also, as you learn from the Division 2, I like to clear down where possible in these games, and I feel like it's a bit confused. I prefer to go, right, you got the base game. I mean, we've had an ongoing kind of text and stuff this year where we'd send each other an image of like a 16 gig download or something for Assassin's Creed, and you go, well, what's going on here? Like, why is this game updating like Fortnite every other week? Like, it shouldn't be doing that. It's not that sort of game. So I mean, I don't like it particularly. I don't think it works, but it's also, I think we're going to a side here where it's called almost like too much content has become a bad thing for this sort of game, because it's not what you want.
Here's my analogy for that. Too much content can be a bad thing. I do agree with that. Bloated games are just the worst, in my opinion. And I always harken it back. Like, I love KFC. But if you have too much of it,
I didn't expect you to say that.
You'll be sick, wouldn't you? You'll be ill. If you keep having it, you'll be like, I'm going to be ill with it. It ain't healthy. So
everything in moderation.
Exactly. Where possible, have it in moderation. And that's not kind of what they were asking. They were asking for constant engagement, probably once a quarter or so.
Yeah.
There'd be something new to jump in. And then I'd be rusty because I hadn't played it since, 3-4 months ago. By the time I even got up to speed, whatever they'd added was over, because it was normally quite short, like bite-sized stuff. And it just absolutely did not work for me. I think initially I was kind of like, oh, this seems like a good idea Like, I felt like the idea of it wasn't necessarily in bad faith or a bad one, but the execution I don't think was particularly delivered well here. Do you think the idea in itself is just rotten for a single player game, or is it more down to this could work if the execution was a bit more fulfilling?
There has to be something like about. I mean, even the Division. Like, this is one. I don't think it's necessarily the type of game. I think it has to. What is it that's bringing these people back? Like with Destiny, what was it that was bringing me back to do stupid quests every week and get certain rewards and things? Like what? And it's ultimately the gameplay, right? It's because the gameplay is good enough that you can rehash environments, you can replay things, you've got a party element with your friends. All those things are lacking in a game like this. I mean, the gameplay's okay, it is what it is, but you're not, you can't sit there and say it's the most engaging combat model you've ever played, right? So, I think the biggest problem is that you enjoy your time in it, but it's not good enough for you to want to come back every weekend or every quarter or something. It's kind of like you play it, you go, okay, that was all right. And as we've said, you gave it a silver, I gave it a bronze. It's not in that gold and platinum tier of games where it's good enough. The base game and the core game is good enough to bring you back on that regular basis. And arguably, really, it ain't going to get much better, is it? You're just going to play it even more and probably get bored of it, really.
Yeah. I think that's well said in terms of the gameplay. Like, it's not bad, but it's not exceptional. I think anyone would pick up Destiny and say that was exceptional first-person shooting gunplay, and still is almost best in class there. So you've kind of you can be hooked just on playing the game, whereas this does, and also it doesn't have the repeatable kind of quests really. I mean, they've added things like river raids, which are sort of endless. Like I said, there's this roguelite Forgotten Saga mode which they've added, which you can just keep replaying. But what's the purpose outside of getting a cutscene maybe at the end, which is usually not worth doing? Like even all the smaller stuff they've added wasn't worth getting on. And one of the content drops, they've added a character that's going to be in Assassin's Creed Mirage, which I think is the next one that's coming out. So already trying to tie this convoluted story into whatever the next delivery method is, which is concerning from my perspective. I don't want carryover. I don't need any of this. I just cut it and start again if you have to, but they're never going to. And over time, really, I've just become to resent the game somewhat. That's the word I think of. I just really have. Yeah. Like, it's just so far from what I remember playing in 2020.
Yeah. And we both did enjoy that.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Don't get me wrong,
conquest.
by the 80th, 90th hour, you're sort of a bit intrigued by it. But thoroughly, that experience in the game itself, the base game, was exactly what I wanted at that time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is. Everything about it is to your point, so far from what we played a few years back.
Yeah. And I just dread to think someone picking this up now and going, cool, what is all this? And I go, well, you've got 13 packs of roadmaps to be dealing with, and 3 expansions now, which has added its own extra layers there for you to go off and explore, plus an already 100-hour odd base game. You can get too much.
Yeah, I've said to you, I think I've probably said on that original review, that base game needs to be half that length. Really, it does.
Yeah, it does.
There's way too much going on there, and I'd have preferred it to have segregated out some of the areas a bit better and stuff. But I think broadly it started off as a good game, and unfortunately, I mean, I wouldn't say I've come to resent it, but.
Wow.
I've got a bit sick of seeing another download, something else for me to not, because I don't really want to do it. I think that's the point. It's like I don't want it. I'm not sitting here going, I really wish they'd do something else for it. When you text me saying, there's this like other last thing to do, I was a bit like, fucking hell! Like, at what point can I safely just delete this off my console and not have to play it anymore? And
I think we're there
when you're
now.
At that point with a game, but when you're at that point with a game, it's not a good sign, is it? Where you're
No,
literally like,
and I know that the rebuttal to that is, why are you bothering? And I do understand that it's sort of like a self-imposed punishment, But at the same point, they're kind of asking to go back in to find out what happens as well.
Yeah.
The last chapter DLC. What's the fucking roadmap say here? Let me get that back. Bloody lost it now, haven't I? Anyway, the last chapter DLC, they were waffling about it, closing out Ivor's story and all this stuff. And I was like, well, yeah, that's absolutely what I'm looking to do.
245 hours in, you don't want to miss the last episode.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Look, Ivor's journey is coming to an end in the last chapter. A new free story pack. I mean, they're playing with fire with those sort of words. But it's not, is it? It's not anything like that. Bringing an intimate closure to the saga of the Wolf Kiss. Jump in now and discover the epilogue that ties up some of the storylines established within the game.
Can I just say, that is not what I just played.
No.
Like, literally, I've done this morning on the day we're recording it. It is not a pack.
No.
It doesn't really tie up loose ends. I mean, they could have literally issued a paragraph and saved me the hassle of having to go back in there. Really.
It was a goose chase as well, trying to find fucking memories and whatnot. And I was like,
I thought they were all going to be in bloody Ravensthorpe, and then they go, no. I was like, I saw the map, and I was like, why is that 5,000 metres away? And I was like, you're fuck. No, not what I wanted.
No, not at all. I would say this whole process has been a strange one. I don't know whether it is an experimental type jobby, whether they knew they weren't going to have something like Mirage ready for a couple of years, and that we know they're moving towards this Infinity project where I don't know what that means. Does that mean smaller entries on an overarching platform? So you just sort of select like a Viking one or an Egyptian one. And perhaps they're more condensed and less. I mean, that's what I'm hoping it's like. But who knows? It might be 4 of these fucking 200-hour bloaters sitting in there for you to rifle through over the course of a decade. Who knows what they're going to do with it? But in this particular instance, they've stretched a game that was okay and good at its time through an extra 2 years. And for me, it's kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, if I'm honest. And other than that, I'm not sure what else to say.
50 hours too much content, at least. I mean, for you, I'd probably say it should be 100 hours all in. I mean, 50-hour base game, 3 10-hour add-ons, and then 20 hours. If you want to do some free stuff and bits and bobs, then bung it in. It should be 100 hours. But, asking another 50, 60 hours of people post-base game over 2 or 3 years is tricky, but you got it's brought the dough in. So who's had the last laugh? Ubisoft have, really.
Yeah, I mean, they've got what they can out of this, and I'm just concerned about where they go next.
I don't give a shit, to be honest.
Well,
playing it.
Well, yeah, that's what I guess that's a good segue. Like, is that it now for Assassin's Creed for you? Like, was this only picked up because it was Vikings? Really?
Yeah. Like, realistically, I mean, I haven't. I think most people that have probably listened to this, and we've spoken many times. Like, stealth games are not my forte, are they? I don't enjoy those. But this one was much more of a go in there, and I mean, you can do it, but I actually think the fun of this is getting in there and really, ripping them up. And
I said that about Horizon. You wouldn't believe me. You kept trying to stealth it.
No, I don't like them robots though. I didn't like them. They unsettled me.
Oh, right, okay.
They unsettled me. I don't know why.
Dinosaurs.
Really.
They're just robots.
I don't know why. Some of the noises and things they made unsettled me, and I was like, this is just not really what I wanted. But anyway,
those raptors popping out the bushes.
It's like, what are we doing? But yeah, so I think it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all the characters and everything, and I played that pretty much hot off the back of the last Viking series as well. So I was proper into it. But before that, I'd picked up Black Flag for a bit, but I was a bit like, not really. And I haven't picked up, any of the previous ones like Odyssey and whatnot. So I'm not invested in the storyline. I don't want to be invested in the storyline, and I've kind of done my Viking bit, and I'll move on with my life, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a look at Mirage and see what it's all about. And because, like I said, I've played every single one of these other than Assassin's Creed Rogue. And the only reason I didn't play that is because it came out at the time, it would have been last gen only. So that's the year we got Unity on PS4 and Xbox One, and then Rogue was on PS3 and Xbox 360. And I was like, I've already got rid of my 360 at that point. So I was like, I can't really go back and do that. That's the only one I've not played, but I've played every other one. Even when they were yearly franchise, remember they used to come out every year. I mean, if this is the replacement for it, I'm not sure what's better. I think we were the peak was when they did Origins, which is the Egyptian one. That's when they sort of changed the formula. And then we got Odyssey a few years later, and then after that we got Valhalla a few years. And I was like, that's fine. That's like a nice gap between each game. Feels like they're actually putting some effort into this. And yet here we are 2 years later, and we've only just, or 2 years later and a bit of change, just finished the Valhalla Saga. The last chapter's only just been delivered to us as well, which I do have a problem with also. Withholding like a key narrative point until 2 years down a roadmap. I'm like, come on. Like
What's the actual release date of this?
I think it was November 2020.
Right.
It was in and around the release week, I think, of the Xbox Series X. And again, I've blamed Phil for getting this game, because if he just released a first party game, I would have probably gone and got that, and then this would have been left and may never have been picked up. But unfortunately, Phil offered me nothing, so I had to take a gamble.
Yeah.
And this is what we ended up with. And
I think you suggested to me to play this actually, because I was playing it on my Series X, my One X, sorry.
Yes.
And I started it on there, and then I was like, oh. But I remember you saying to me, because I think we were talking about Vikings, and you were like, oh, you should have a look at that. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And then, I ended up buying it.
Well, I didn't know they were going to do this
sent
with
me down that. Well, neither did I. Otherwise, perhaps I'd have said, no way. I ain't doing that.
Well, look, we're going to ask the question about Assassin's Creed Valhalla 2 years and change on. So this is including everything we've played and dabbled in the game, the expansions, and of course the last chapter update, which is the final content update for the entire game, as they're saying now. This is from start to finish. It's a 2 year journey we're trying to condense and think about, and whether it deserves to go into the gaming gallery. So what I've decided to do now going forward is, rather than unlocking the doors of the gallery, the doors should be always open. There's someone on reception that we go to and say, look, do we go to the owner's bar, which is upstairs, they've got a little suite up there, or do we take this through to the public exhibitions and start to pop something like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, post all the content into the gallery? So I'm going to make you go first on whether Assassin's Creed Valhalla as a total package deserves a place in the gallery and amongst your personal showcase of video games.
I mean, it's really difficult because when you take the things as a bite size and different elements, it's kind of a different thing. And there's as we've discussed, there's a whole load of different ways you can look at this game, from someone picking it up now to someone that's perhaps just completed the base game and then wants to do the DLCs and stuff. It's a tricky one. I think, broadly speaking, I've given everything a bronze, other than that Wrath of the Druids, and therefore it feels to me like it deserves to, as a whole, be a bronze.
Yeah.
But I do have to say that is by the skin of its teeth. Like, I could easily drop it out as well, because there's so many things about the experience I don't like, and I have to be completely honest. If it wasn't for my love, if you like, of the Norse mythology, I wouldn't even played the game. And therefore I feel like a large majority of what's kept me going is the Norse mythology. And if you're not, I would put my caveat to the whole thing would be, if you're not in some way invested in this Norse mythology, it doesn't get in.
And also, if you are, then go and play God of War.
And there is also that. If you really want if you want the true story, that's the place to go.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So Logan gives it a bronze, so it'll appear in his personal exhibition in that tier. I ain't putting it in. I'm going to punish it for this audacious attempt, is what I would call it, to string along content and to. And again, fair cop if people say you self-inflicted by playing it all. That's fair cop. But I like to put myself through the torture rack sometimes, just as a case study, to learn from it and see, well, I'm not going to say moment to moment I hated every minute of playing the game. That's clearly not the case. It's not possible.
Yeah.
But I just feel like when I reflect back, I was like, that was not a good investment of my time in total. Like, in reality, the base game I felt was, but everything that came after that was just about scraping and scrapping. And, yeah, I did not enjoy a lot of that game post-content. The base game had its problems where it was too long anyway, and that was just... enhanced. Those glaring issues that I had were just constantly enhanced every time I picked up the bloody game and went to it. So therefore, I will not be putting it into my personal showcase, and that's the way it's got to be. It goes from a nice vanilla silver, down. It's just worn me down, as you can probably tell by my words and demeanour.
I think it's worn both of us down, and I think.
What are you playing it for? Well, I can't answer that question because Ronnie likes to finish things.
It's like The Walking Dead, whatever it is. You get to a point of no return.
It's true. The Walking Dead is the one.
You get to a point of no return where you go, well, I have to see where this goes. Otherwise, I mean, you know me, I'm quite happy with most things to go acceptable losses and walk away.
Yeah.
Like, if it's really that atrocious... I mean, I can't say that I agree with how they've done it or that I've loved it, but, I did start to hate it. Like, that last DLC, The Dawn of Ragnarok, I found hard to do, more than any of them.
I mainlined the shit out of Dawn of Ragnarok. It was just like fast travel here, bang, bang, main quest, bang, bang. And then it asked me to find fucking dwarves' huts, and I was like, just give me the map marker.
And I'll go there.
Yeah, I'll go there.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I can understand why you feel that way, and I imagine that if I picked this up now without ever having to play it and tried to play it, I wouldn't come up with it as a bronze. I wouldn't be able to get through it.
No, yeah, I would. I mean, Ronnie wouldn't allow it, so I'd probably have to get through it. But I'd be even more. The only thing I can say that sort of saved me was playing it piecemeal. Broke up the monotony some point, because before it started it was over almost. Like it was a weekend jobby for most of it at most. So it wasn't like I was sitting there for 20 hours trying to grind through garbage. But I don't know, it's a bit of a shame for me because I did enjoy Valhalla and thought that was a good direction for it to go. I've enjoyed, since they changed the format and the formula from Origins onward, I've enjoyed this trilogy of games they've done as a whole. But they've really just overindulged with the content with this one, and
fair.
I sometimes say these developers get up their own arse, and I think they're up their own arse with this one for business reasons or for not. It doesn't matter to me. Ultimately, it ended with a sour tasting game that just got progressively worse over time, and I didn't enjoy. From start to what they offer in the last chapter, which is the complete Ivor story, wasn't consistent enough to me to warrant it. So therefore, Creed Valhalla does the unthinkable thing of dragging itself out of the gallery. I mean, the vanilla game will always be there. I must say that showcase will always be there, but as a complete package, I can't do that. Anyway, we're in at waffling, just kicking the shit out of it more. I think it's had its fair share of lumps here, getting punched and kicked and scratched at. I don't know what else to say about Valhalla and Assassin's Creed in general. I think we've both communicated where we'll probably go for the next one. For you, it's a hard no. For me, the carrot will always be there, because we say Valhalla was like The Walking Dead. To me, the Assassin's Creed series is like that. So every time a new game pops up, I'm like, well, let's just see what we've got.
Is this going to be the last one?
Well, they never will, though, will they?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Nope.
It's established itself as a well-known franchise and movies and all sorts of trash. But there we go. A bronze for Logan and a rare non-induction into my personal exhibition for the Dimp Digital Gaming Gallery. Nothing more for us to say here other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.